All right. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining today's Canadian Business Expansion into the U.S. webinar. My name is Sarah Larson here at Invest Buffalo Niagara, the Buffalo Niagara Region's economic development organization, which is tasked with assisting companies interested in expanding to the Buffalo Niagara region. Joining me today is Invest Buffalo Niagara's Senior Vice President, Matthew Hubacher. Matt works directly with companies considering an expansion, guiding them from research all the way to ribbon cutting. And our guest today is Stephen Rossi, CEO and founder of WorkSport, a Canadian company who made their first expansion to the U.S. in 2022, working closely with our team at Invest Buffalo Niagara and various key partners. So now, without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Matthew.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today to discuss how to expand your Canadian business in the U.S. with confidence. I'm Matthew Hubacher. I'm the Senior Vice President here at Invest Buffalo Niagara. I head up our business development and research teams. What is Invest Buffalo Niagara? Invest Buffalo Niagara is a nonprofit, non-government regional economic development organization based in Buffalo, New York. We have an 8-county service territory that extends from Lake Ontario to the Pennsylvania border, north to south, and Lake Erie to the Finger Lakes region, west to east. We help companies with business attraction and expansion projects in any one of the 8 counties here, as you can see on our screen, in our service territory. We have target industries in which we proactively reach out to companies as well as assist with referrals from our partner organizations. Those 5 target industries are advanced business services, advanced manufacturing, agribusiness, which is food and beverage processing, life sciences, and logistics distribution. We help companies in these and other industry sectors. The one industry sector that we do not assist companies is in retail, but pretty much every other industry we can help Canadian companies expand their business into the US. So why would Canadian companies consider a US expansion? I think there's a handful of themes that we've heard from the prospects from Canada with whom we've worked over the years of why they consider expanding into the US. The first is market access. So the US is a market that is approximately 10 times the size of Canada. That's an opportunity to increase their US sales. There may be an interest in obtaining a Made in the USA label, both to promote organic sales, but also that may be a requirement through procurement or contracts that may need to require a Made in the USA label. That's one theme that we hear from Canadian companies. Another theme is risk mitigation. So that could be mitigating logistics cost and delays at the border. That might also provide more proximate location to customers, to your suppliers, potentially your competitors. We also hear that Canadian companies can realize operational cost savings by expanding into the US. That could be through commercial real estate costs, electric and hydro costs, wages surrounding labor. There's also some federal, state, and local incentive programs that can be brought to bear with expansion projects into the US. And we hear from Canadian companies with whom we work that all 3 of those factors go into the decision to expanding in the US. Now, once a company has made the decision to expand into the US, why would they consider Buffalo Niagara as the place to do that expansion project? Well, we have certain strengths and assets in our region that lend themselves to assisting with questions on market access, risk mitigation, and cost savings. Some of those you can see on the slide right now. So for market access, we've got a developed multimodal logistics infrastructure. For risk mitigation, our strategic location proximate to the border certainly helps that front, but also a lack of natural disaster risk provides operational certainty to manufacturers and other companies doing business in the U.S. As far as cost savings go, you can see hydropower that is generated at Niagara Falls. We have a low cost of living as compared to other major metro areas in the U.S. The workforce cost and quality is second to none, and our quality of life is certainly a benefit to those companies thinking of expanding in Buffalo, Niagara. Specifically related to our strategic location, the area that's shaded in green here is a 10-hour drive from our service territory in Western New York. A 10-hour drive is what the U.S. federal government considers a day's drive. Within this green shaded area is 41% of the binational location. To get to major markets, both in the Northeast corridor, so we're talking Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, all the way down south to Baltimore and Washington, D.C., being able to access markets to the west as far as Chicago, as well as Canadian markets, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and beyond. We think that this strategic location places us as the best possible jumping off point for Canadian companies to establish a foothold in the U.S. here in Buffalo, Niagara, and build out their U.S. location from that foothold in Western New York. So once you've made the decision to expand into the U.S., now you're interested in Buffalo, Niagara as the place to do that expansion project. How does Invest Buffalo Niagara and our team help you accomplish that goal? So again, we're a private, nonprofit, non-government, regional economic development organization. Our guiding light, our North Star, is to make it as easy as possible for companies to expand in our region, create jobs, and invest capital. How do we do that? The first, we can help with site selection. So site selection would entail not only introductions and facilitations for commercial real estate properties and commercial real estate professionals and developers, but also introductions to utility providers, both on the electric hydro side, natural gas, water, wastewater. We help make all of those introductions and bring all of those team members to the project to make sure that the site selection can run as smoothly and as quickly as possible. We facilitate what we call cross-border due diligence meetings with experts in, legal, for incorporation and immigration, for U.S. accounting and tax considerations, for HR compliance and recruitment. All of those relationship facilitations we're able to make to our local partners here on the U.S. side of the border, many of whom their entire book of business is assisting Canadian companies expand to the U.S. So we're introducing partners who have done this before, help Canadian companies expand, kind of do it every day, and we're able to bring their extensive knowledge and experience to assist your U.S. expansion project. Last but not least, we help coordinate federal, state, and local incentives to help bring down the financial costs of expanding into the U.S. And we certainly can help you with workforce recruitment, but also probably most importantly, HR compliance. So while we are neighbors, while we are friends, and while we are sometimes respectful rivals on the ice, this is, it is two different companies. There are two sets of HR compliance laws, and we have a team that helps you comply with U.S. human resources laws kind of from the beginning so that you're set up for success for the long term. In practice, how does that look on the site selection side? We have an intake form that really we would start the process as a completion and return of an intake form. We use that intake form to create an email in which we blast out an email to our extensive network of commercial real estate professionals, brokers, building owners, and developers. And we help identify suitable commercial real estate in the region for your project. As a private nonprofit economic development organization, we don't own any land. We don't own any buildings. So we don't have, a manufacturing facility to sell you. We don't have office space to lease you. But what we do is make the connection to commercial real estate professionals who do represent property and help you walk you through that process, from identification of suitable properties to actually having site visits here in the region, to ultimately creating a short list and finding your U.S. operation. It's a similar process on the incentive side. As a private nonprofit, non-government economic development organization, like, we're not providing any incentives. So we don't have any, low-cost loans to give you. We're not going to bait any of your taxes. We're not going to provide, workforce training. We're not going to, provide renewable tax credits. What we are as professional project managers and economic developers, as we're meeting with you, as we're hearing what your plans are for U.S. expansion, what's going to make your U.S. expansion a success in the region, we're able to bring in the experts at the state level, which is Empire State Development, or the regional level at the New York Power Authority, or at the local level at a county or town industrial development agency. Those are the entities who do offer financial incentives, and they are the folks that we will bring in the process to represent their programs, ultimately helping you apply to those programs and making sure we're leading you through the incentives process to make sure that everything is completed in the proper timing and with the proper cadence that financial incentives require on our side of the border. And third, within workforce, we have an initiative within Invest Buffalo Niagara called Be in Buffalo. We can help you recruit, and we can help you post job openings on our website. We can help with any type of workforce data or comparative analysis that might be helpful within your expansion plan. Again, we talked about HR compliance. We can do wage surveys. We can help make connections to HR professionals who can provide information on wages and benefits, kind of anything that helps the process move forward, helps our Canadian companies be successful from the jump and for the long term. That's our role as project managers and economic developers. I always say to my Canadian prospects with whom I'm working, yes, we want you to expand your business, your Canadian business in Buffalo, Niagara. We're here to support that process and support the job creation and the capital investment that expansion project represents. However, we don't want you here for the short term. Like, part of your engagement with Invest Buffalo Niagara is to make sure that your U.S. entity is set up properly from the beginning, from day one, so that you have long-term success in our region and that you're part of our, ecosystem for many, many years to come. Speaking of that Canadian ecosystem here in Western New York, over the last 25 years, the team at Invest Buffalo Niagara has helped over 120 Canadian companies successfully expand in our region. You can see a number of names and logos on this slide, which is just a small sample of the companies with whom we've assisted over the years. I'm proud to say that I've been doing economic development in Buffalo and Western New York for 18 and a half years. My estimate is that I've helped probably 50% or more of these Canadian companies expand in the region, either as the direct project manager or playing some type of support role through my background as a project manager and economic researcher. I'm proud to welcome Stephen Rossi, who is the CEO of WorkSport, whose logo you can see at the bottom of that slide. WorkSport is a company that we've had the great fortune to work with not once, but twice in our region, helping the company with their original expansion into the U.S. and then helping them through the expansion process once they were here and operational in West Seneca, helping them expand further once facility was up and running and they saw great success in establishing U.S. operations. Before I pass it over to Stephen to talk about his journey of U.S. expansion and share some of the tips and tricks and best practices, lessons learned that he has experienced. We're going to show a short introductory video to tee up our conversation.
Worksport is a Canadian-based, now headquartered here in Western New York, manufacturer of automotive accessories. Our leading product is our AL3 tonneau cover. It's an aluminum tonneau cover made fully here within the factory here in West Seneca. The interesting part about the product is that it's also primarily US sourced material. To our customers, that authenticity of made by hand proudly in the US is very important and is a big key factor to driving our brand and recognition. Our initial expansion from Canada to the US in 2022 was something that we were generally concerned about. So Invest Buffalo Niagara put us in touch with the proper immigration attorneys that were able to get us the visas for our key staff to be able to travel across the border quickly and easily and at affordable rates. The US is our primary market and a market that we really wanted to grow within. Western New York was a fantastic area geographically located for shipping, as well as with a very strong workforce and a lot of great incentives. We've always been very successful in being able to attract and retain talent here. That real strong mix of brain and brawn, and that's a lot to do with Invest Buffalo Niagara's Being Buffalo program. One of the other key benefits of being in Buffalo Niagara is our access to clean hydroelectric power at a very affordable rate. We had a lot of great early success that we've been able to plan an expansion at this facility here of about 70,000 square feet. My vision for Worksport is simple, is to grow this business, have multiple locations producing key automotive accessories as a staple in the fabric of Western New York.
Thank you, Matthew. Thanks, everyone. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear. Good afternoon for everyone in our time zone, or good morning for anyone behind us. I'm Steve Rossi, CEO and founder of Worksport, and it's my distinct pleasure to be here today to answer questions, or at least give you my experiences, wins, losses, and draws with our expansion into the United States from Canada. So to set the stage, a little bit about me is I founded my first business at the age of 18 in automotive in Toronto, Ontario. I'm Canadian born and raised. I love my home country, proudly Canadian. And having a series or 20 years of experience in automotive and building business, I'd fallen in love with tonneau covers for pickup trucks. And in 2019 to 2021, around that COVID era, we were able to raise significant investor capital and pivot from being a imported product made overseas in Asia to really living the dream of the domestically made product. So that's where we started really considering where we would best served as a Canadian. We looked at the Canadian market. And I guess I'll start with saying, why not Canada? Number one is our largest customer in Canada is by revenue, less revenue than our smallest customer in the United States. So we do have a multiplicative effect in terms of revenue upside in the US market. We also had climate issues, not global warming or cooling, anything like that, but just a lot of difficult climate to be able to traverse in terms of transporting raw materials, travel to work, these types of things. And when we started looking geographically at areas to manufacture in, the Greater Toronto area, where I speak Ontario-centric, was damningly expensive. Real estate was expensive, property taxes were expensive. Payroll taxes were also expensive. Energy was expensive. In fact, there was nothing that was inexpensive for us to be able to be made in Canada, as well as assessing that the raw materials to make our products would mostly be imported from America as well. So with the cost of manufacturing, real estate, and then operational costs, and then the size of the Canadian economy or market for our products when compared to that of the US market for our products, we started looking in Buffalo. So why not Canada? Addressed some of the costs were expensive. Although there is a workforce, the workforce was more centrally located within the Greater Toronto area where things are more expensive. Where we were looking was peripheral to Ontario, so the Greater Toronto area, like let's just say Western Ontario, Northern Ontario, where the workforce is a little bit more spread a little thinner. So we were confident that we'd be able to ramp in staff as quickly as possible. So why not Canada? Business is bigger in the United States for our product, especially since we're pickup truck accessory manufacturers. And there were just a lot of smaller other issues that would reduce the incentive for us to be able to grow our business. So when looking in Buffalo, why Buffalo? Number one is geographically located. Matthew did a great job in assessing all of this. I mean, we have $100 billion in business that flows just through those ports in the Buffalo area. So just being in Buffalo, you're in the center of a lot of trade. It means product goes there, which means that logistics are more favorable. So when you're sourcing supply chain items, you're not sending a truck to Midland, Ontario, where your factory is. You're sending a truck to, for example, Buffalo, Buffalo, New York, where cargo's already $100 billion of cargo is already traversing. We also have we started discovering that the hydroelectric situation, as Matthew also assessed, was very favorable in terms of the volume of power. So our facility has 1.2 million volts of power available to it. So there is an abundance of energy available in the Buffalo Niagara region in heavy manufacturing sites. Whereas a lot of sites we were looking at in Ontario had low energy issues. So 400 amps, 300 amps, not enough power. Whereas at this, we had the opposite. We had too much power. And we assess the workforce, a very strong workforce. And as I said in that video, I believe I've coined, at least one of the people that coined the phrase in Buffalo. I have experience in business all around the world. We have locations and we have staff in the state of Missouri, in Ontario still, and various other parts of the world. And Buffalo has the perfect intersection of individuals that possess brain and brawn in conjunction. So we have these individuals that'll come in and plan electrical expansions or infrastructure changes to your building, and then they're the ones swinging the hammers and getting the job done as well, which is very, very, very hard to find. So we found a very good quality of employee, a very, very good quality of service provider. And in general, we've been very, very proud and very fortunate to be able to get, the job done. So with transport being available, infrastructure being available, the DNA of manufacturing being long faceted in the Buffalo Niagara region, we decided to pull the trigger and purchase a facility in West Seneca, New York in 2021. And it took us about a year to get it upfitted. Where we are today is we've staffed upwards of 125 staff, and we've been able to grow our revenues 300 or 400%. We've been doubling our revenues year over year for a number of years, and we don't plan on stopping. So the market's big for our product, but I think that the recipe, the ingredients that we have for the recipe for our success is what's causing us to be able to grow. So the Made in America stamp, the American supply chain, American raw materials, as well as the Buffalo Niagara element has been, I think, all a big part of it. So during that move and that process, I could tell you the dues were, the first thing we did was we submitted a quick survey through Invest Buffalo Niagara, to which they were very quick in being able to connect with us. So from there, once we had a survey and a questionnaire, they were able to connect us with a number of businesses and service providers that have brought immense amount of value to us. Number one, they've gotten us in touch with Lumsden McCormick, which is our auditor. As a public company, finding an auditor is like a marriage, and finding an auditor that you can work well with has been fantastic. So Lumsden McCormick is now part of the Worksport family. They were quick to get us in touch with them. They got us in touch with Harder, Secret, and Emergy, which is our U.S. immigration firm. As I did say in that video, immigration is key. Being able to get the proper work and travel visas are important. And finding a firm that's able to qualify those individuals and get you being able to move and work in the USA from Canada is probably one of the most important parts to be able to get started. We've also been able to get a relationship with ESC, Employer Services Corporation, which is an HR firm that helped us manage and develop our sufficient processes. ECIDA, Erie County Industrial Development Agency, help us fund our first expansion. Empire State Development provided us a grant to fund our headcount expansion in New York, which was significant for us and we're very proud of. And then NYPA, New York Power Authority, granted us an electricity credits or low cost power. Franklin Energy was another New York NYSEG or New York Electric and Gas partner that helped us navigate some additional savings that we could find in terms of the energy that we use. So we have a very strong amount of energy, and we also have a significant savings there. That's just some of the relationships on top of the grants that we're able to qualify, which have incentivized us to grow from 0 employees to over 120, and we're planning 300 staff strong within the number of years. We do plan a 70,000 square foot facility expansion. I do plan on expanding into further facilities and investing further in manufacturing in Buffalo. And in general, the infrastructure, the DNA of manufacturing, and the big city paired with the small town feel of being able to get questions answered in the Buffalo area has been fantastic. I have no complaints. The only thing that I could recommend to anyone considering an expansion into Buffalo, Niagara, or any expansion in the U.S. is when you're dealing with a multiplicatively larger economy and possibly market size opportunity, there's going to be a significant need for cash to be able to do so. So doing so, just make sure that you have the funding necessary to be able to expand. Although there are incentives, human resources, labor are all affordable, and there's grants, being able to buy, retrofit, and expand and tool and do all the different things you need to do to manufacture in Buffalo is just something that isn't going to be is going to be an operational expense for your business. So obviously, financial planning was important for us. Being able to invest as a business altogether, we've invested over $80 million, not in the expansion, but in the business's operation in general. And we want to add to that continually. But being able to afford the expansion is critical. And also to mirror that, I mean, we have Moog in Buffalo, a very large business, and we have Tesla that just invested in 2024, 2025, $500 million in their state-of-the-art facilities. So it makes expansion and the economies of scale through the high tide sailing all ships makes that a little bit easier for us. So that's been a little bit of a highlight of the wins and losses. Why not Ontario as an Ontario native? Why Buffalo, Niagara? And some of the different service providers that we've been able to get strong value from. And the value keeps coming. We continue to ask for different incentives or different connections to be made, and it's always a warm welcome. So you have, again, a big city in Buffalo, and the Buffalo Niagara region is very populated, but you have a small town vibe in that you're 1 or 2 degrees of separation away from anything or anyone you may need to contact to help and expand your business. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So at this point now, we're going to move into our Q&A portion of today's webinar. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, I also want to share a couple reminders. BuffaloNiagara.org. You can go to our website there for more information on what we do, how we help companies, and why we think Buffalo Niagara is an ideal location. The first question I'm going to ask to actually both of you, but we'll start with Matt. Matt, what have you, in talking with companies, found as to be kind of the biggest misconceptions Canadian companies have about expanding into the U.S.?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and one we kind of introed as we started the webinar this afternoon. I think the biggest fears from Canadian companies that I hear is a fear of the unknown, a fear that expanding into the U.S. is going to be like incredibly onerous and difficult, and a fear that they're going to have to go it alone. And I can say like all 3 of those fears are certainly, valid, but that's where Invest Buffalo Niagara is here to help. Our, North Star, our guiding light, our reason for existence is to make it as easy as possible for Canadian companies to expand their operations in the U.S., create jobs, and invest capital. We feel like we can provide, a roadmap. We can be a guide in making sure that your expansion project happens at the pace and the cadence that is required for a successful expansion. the Invest Buffalo Niagara team and our professional service provider partners are here to assist that effort. Um, we can, share information. We help facilitate relationships. Like we are project managers. Like we're here to help. We've done it before. We'll do it again. And you don't need to feel like you're going at it alone. You don't need to feel like you need to make, a dozen phone calls to meet with a lawyer or to meet with, an incentive provider, or to meet with an accountant. We help facilitate all of those meetings and introductions for you so that you can get the information that you need in a timely manner and progress the expansion project accordingly.
So then to you, Stephen, what was a misconception maybe that was debunked once you were here or as you were going through the expansion process, what kind of surprised you?
So there were, it's anticlimactic. I kind of already knew the area and I'd have fallen in love with it decades ago. And there wasn't anything anyone could say, but I think that what I wasn't prepared for is we have a saying, is that, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to get a prince. And in Buffalo it was just wasn't there. It was we met an electrician to do an ungodly amount of electrical work, and it was just the right company at the right price the first time. And they were great people, and they're, friends of ours today. And it just happened every single time. So one thing that we weren't prepared for was how easy things could be when you meet the right individuals the first time. Yeah. So it almost seemed that coming out of Ontario, I was the one that had my fur up. I was the one that was defensive. And when you start to realize that there's a certain culture in the region that endorses business and the business is in their DNA, and getting that up and running is something that's so rewarding to the people in the region. It just sails all ships. So I start when I speak to investors by asking, my team or I, how many times, raise your hand if you've set up a state-of-the-art tonneau cover factory before. Nobody raises their hand. I had no idea what I was doing in 2021. I had never done it before. And the fact that I did it today is, I'll take the I out of it. I didn't do it today, but I sure as heck found the right people to do it. And that's because of the 716. That's been a big help for us. And I can't speak endearingly enough that it's just finding the right people. The last example I'll give you is we bought the building came with a tower called an ASRS system, which is a 100-foot tall tower that automatically stores 5,500 skids using robots. The tower is 20 years old and it's based on code that was 20 years old, and we didn't think anyone was going to be able to help us program the units and get them up to standard. But I mean, the guy around the corner did it. It was just wild to know that, to have that amount of dialed in brain and brawn around the corner, on the same street where Python as a language has been stale for 20 years is crazy. So Buffalo's made it easy for us, and the misconception comes from external coming in, where we think that business is hard, but doing business in the right area it makes it easy.
So this question has been coming up a lot over the last year. So it's the tariff question. So I'm going to address it a little differently for both of you. Starting with Stephen, can you tell us if the tariffs have been a hurdle for you and why or why not?
Tariffs have not been a hurdle for us because we're 93% American sourced material. So I say bronze, silver, gold are some of my metaphors. Again, silver business being like a Walmart where it's foreign products sold by a domestic corporation, gold being domestic product manufactured domestically. And that's what Worksport does. We use aluminum from American soil. We use the resin for our paint comes from American soil. So the tariffs don't bother us so much, but boy, is there a significant amount of inflation as a result of the tariffs and base materials, copper, aluminum, oil, energy, these types of things. So the downstream effects of tariffs in terms of domestic commodity material inflation has been significant. But in terms of the tariffs themselves, face value, we've been impervious to it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, however. We're definitely feeling the lack of Canadian aluminum, but that's a different story.
Yeah. And so, Matt, we talk about tariffs. There's a number of other reasons that you stated today why to be in Buffalo, Niagara besides the tariffs. But can you also touch on the federal trade zones that we have here?
Yeah, sure. And before I touch on the FTZ, Sarah, I would say, um, like tariffs are an external, factor, that's out there, and there are a lot of external factors that are out there. There's, global conflict. There is, there was a time when interest rates were rising.
Mhm.
There was a time when there was a banking crisis. There's all these external factors that are happening, globally. The way that Invest Buffalo Niagara portrays, kind of our role is kind of no matter what external factors are out there, like we're here to help. So it can be, President Biden, or it can be President Trump, or it can be Prime Minister Trudeau or Prime Minister Carney. It could be tariffs, no tariffs, conflict, global conflict, not global conflict. Like there's an organization here in Western New York called Invest Buffalo Niagara that's here to help companies expand in our region, no matter what else is happening externally. But specifically regarding to the federal trade zone, so we have a handful of very large federal trade zones in our region, which companies can utilize to store, to accept, store, improve, and ship goods tariff free, custom and duty free. I think to Stephen's point, I think being able to source a domestic supply chain, like certainly helps mitigate some of the risk that tariffs pose. But beyond, that supply chain optimization, there are incentive programs within these specific geographies called foreign trade zones that can also help mitigate the risks presented by the current tariff regime.
Thank you. A couple questions specifically for Stephen. The first one, have you expanded beyond Buffalo Niagara into other estates?
Sure, yeah. We do have a research and development facility and some light assembly in Springfield, Missouri. We selected that area. It shares a lot of similar DNA to that in Buffalo, although a little bit more challenging geographically in terms of travel by air or by land. So freight's a little bit more expensive, getting in and out, getting people back and forth in and out because it's such a small town. And that's another huge benefit to Buffalo is that little airport is just wonderful. You're 45 minutes to New York City. We've expanded a little bit in Springfield, Missouri, but any significant expansion on the production side, on our industrial manufacturing, will be within the Buffalo Niagara region. Although if we do expand on the energy side, because of the engineering resource that we have available to us in Springfield, we may look there as well. But yeah, it'll be industrial, will be within in the Buffalo Niagara region.
Yeah. And you brought up funding. The funding process is something, to really pay attention to. One of our guests brings up, some higher taxes here in New York State. I'll point out incentives and just take a note that I know from your project, some of the incentives that you were awarded during the process in working through Invest Buffalo Niagara was the mortgage recording and the sales tax abatement. You also received an Excelsior Jobs tax credit and a hydropower allocation that certainly helped, as you mentioned. But if you can, go a little further into how you helped through the funding process yourself.
Yep. So Buffalo is home to a lot of fantastic regional banks that were just very, very willing to help us when the building that we purchased, we were able to place a mortgage through a bank in Buffalo, and then there's KeyBank and PNC and regional banks that we have relationships with. New York State is home to, of the 17,000 investors Worksport has, to I'd say 50% of the investors in Worksport are within the state of New York as well, of course, encompassing New York City. So in general, the region's been great in terms of making connections with the right banks for the right needs, whether it's operating cash, lines of credits, financings for purchase orders, these types of things, or standard mortgages. And we've been lucky and very well served, not having to do business with anyone beyond a 10-minute drive away from the factory. Funding the business, however, has been mostly a mechanism of us as being a public company, which is a totally different story. As anyone expanding, having the right access to the right funding, whether it's through regional banks or investors, is imperative.
And I know we touched on the Made in the USA label. I think you both mentioned it, but one of our attendees is asking, is that something that your US audience is looking for?
If it didn't exist, we wouldn't. The Made in the USA label is important. We're finding that there's been an interesting shift in how consumers consume, and our product being a somewhat niche, but consumer-based product at high value. The average consumer is thinking twice before clicking the buy button on Amazon. I feel that the average consumer is actually shifting back to stores. What we're hearing in our polls is that the average consumer has just gotten too much, for lack of a better word, junk, online, and they're looking for that made in America or made by someone in this continuous landmass, North America product, that's going to be more premium and last. So that's where we're finding the made in America by hand. If you want to see it, come to our factory and you'll see us put everything together. I think that's the most important aspect to what it is that we're doing.
Matt, can you touch on the federal designation as a tech hub in the semiconductor supply chain?
Yeah, sure. I can touch on that briefly, Sarah. Thanks. So you may hear this term tech hub, right? So this is a federally designated corridor, which goes from Buffalo to Rochester to Syracuse, which is specifically for semiconductor R&D and manufacturing. Western New York, so that's Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, is the only region in the U.S. to be designated a federally designated tech hub for semiconductor manufacturing. And that allows us in West Buffalo Niagara and our partner organizations to assist companies not only who are already in the semiconductor supply chain grow their businesses and expand, but also present opportunities to companies who may be interested in joining the supply chain or need information on how to access the semiconductor supply chain. We are equipped to do that through our project management expertise at Invest Buffalo Niagara. The reason that that's important is there are two major fabs that are under construction or will very soon be under construction. One is in Columbus, Ohio, which is an Intel fab. The other is Micron, which is in Clay, New York, which is essentially Syracuse. Both of those facilities are approximately 2 to 3.5 hours away from Western New York. We're pretty much right smack dab in the middle of those two major semiconductor fab construction projects. Those are proposed to be fully online and operational in about 2030. But as the fabs are under construction and they start to ramp up to production, they need a supply chain network, a very vast and developed supply chain network. And locating here proximate to either facility can provide some strategic advantages to companies.
All right. So we're going to finish up with one last brief question for each of you. A lot of names thrown around today, a lot of phone calls, it sounds like, partnerships. And Matt, sometimes we notice a company has made a number of steps forward themselves only to have to sometimes backtrack. So what would you say your advice is? What should a company's first step be?
Yeah, I think no matter where a Canadian company is, in their U.S. expansion process, call us, email us, call us at Invest Buffalo Niagara. You'll be, as part of this webinar, you'll be getting our contact information, but our website, buffaloniagara.org. We can and should be your first call, your first email. We're here to assist Canadian companies establish their operations in the U.S. That's really our reason for existence. So we've got the know-how, we've got the expertise, and we welcome kind of any and all expressions of interest and stand ready to help facilitate a U.S. expansion, today or at some point down the road.
And we should note that that call is free. Any advice or project management that Matthew and his team offer from us is free of charge and confidential. And so finally, Stephen, if you were to give someone last piece of advice, top of your mind, someone considering expanding to the US, what is that?
I think that, measure twice, cut once. The right amount of due diligence, strength in numbers avails itself. I did not set up a factory in Buffalo. We set up a factory in Buffalo, and I'm just a small cog of the wheel, and maybe the orchestrator, but definitely not the doer. So there's just leaning on the resources, letting these people that are just so good at it do what they're so great at is just critical. And then thinking about, if you're expanding in the United States, thinking about, your product and the market potential for it. But, like I said, our biggest customer in Canada was by numbers less than our smallest customer in the United States. So it's been a great move in the spirit of business and commerce for us. So the advice is, yeah, measure twice, cut once, and to the extent that you can lean on people, you should, and they just do a fantastic job of it.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and look for our follow-up email this week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.